Hello, everyone. I am Sean, and welcome once again to Sean's Horror Corner. As always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you tuning in today. Again, everyone, I know I say this every time, but I am very appreciative of everyone who's been commenting, liking, sharing, um, yeah, following on social media, all the things. So thank you all so much. It's you guys are an amazing group. So thank you all. Today we are going to be talking about a classic from 1980. We're going to be talking about John Carpenter's The Fog. I had seen this movie quite some time ago. I remembered the general premise, but really didn't remember much about the movie. It's been a long time since I saw this one. So this was a fun rewatch today to go back and check this out. And this is an interesting movie to talk about. I haven't scored this one yet. I'm going to wait till I get through talking about it to help me kind of settle in and try to pick exactly where I'm at, because there are some things about this movie that I absolutely love. And there are some things about this movie that I struggle with a little bit. So not real sure, even as I start here, where I'm landing score wise. But yeah, let's jump right in and start talking about The Fog. Tagline for the film: what you can't see won't hurt you, it will kill you. Synopsis for the movie: strange things begin to occur as a tiny California coastal town prepares to commemorate its centenary. Sorry, drew a blank there on what that word was for a minute. Inanimate objects spring eerily to life. Reverend Malone stumbles upon a dark secret about the town's founding. A radio announcer, Stevie, witnesses a mystical fire. Hitchhiker Elizabeth discovers the mutilated corpse of a fisherman. And then a mysterious fog descends upon the village and more people start to die. Please excuse my dog. She wants to chime in this morning. She likes to do this. I feel like every time I get ready to record, she just kind of lays around quietly, behaves herself, is a good dog, and then I hit record and suddenly she wants to bark at everything in the apartment complex. So I do apologize for her interruptions there. Film was released February 1st of 1980, directed by John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, cinematography done by Dean Cundy, music by John Carpenter, distributed by Avco, Embassy Pictures, a runtime of 90 minutes, $1.1 million budget, and a box office of $21.3 million. Let me mention some cast here real quick, because this is a stacked cast. One of the huge pluses for this film: Adrienne Barbeau, who I always smile when I see something that she was in. Yeah, I have a memory involving Adrienne Barbeau from when I was a kid. But anyway, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh, Tom Atkins, Hal Holbrook, Nancy Loomis. We'll stop there. And let's start by talking about the cast and characters, because that's one of the biggest things about this movie, really on the good and the bad side, as far as I'm concerned. So the cast is absolutely incredible. This is an amazing group of talent put together for this film. I feel like this movie, had you had a different cast, had you had a bunch of unknowns or barely knowns, I don't think this movie would have been anywhere near as good as it is, in my opinion, because this cast is just absolutely amazing. Adrienne Barbeau is incredible in the role of Stevie, the radio DJ, and I mean, I had seen her in a few other things here. There's Swamp Thing, Escape from New York. I mean, she's been in a lot of stuff, but huge fan of Adrienne Barbeau. Jamie Lee Curtis, one of the greatest final girls in horror movie history, with Halloween, Terror Train, Prom Night. I mean, just so many good things for Jamie Lee. Janet Leigh from Psycho, having her in this film. Tom Atkins, icon in the horror industry. I mean, there's so many people out there that love Tom Atkins. Although I'm really beginning to feel like Tom Atkins plays the same character every time with just a different name and slightly different wardrobe, but he might be the exact same guy every time in every movie, which is fine. I don't dislike Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins is fine. But yeah, Nancy Loomis being in this movie, was also in Halloween. Yeah, just an amazing cast, and everybody does a good job. The performances in this movie are very solid. What you would expect from this group. So I have zero problems with the cast and the performances in the film. What I have a problem with is the decisions made by some of these characters, or just the interactions between these characters, blow my mind. And what I mean by that, and we'll get more into it as I go through the actual plot and walk through this a little bit, but the way this group of characters bond so quickly together with people that they don't even know blows my mind. Yeah, it's just crazy to me. The story has some holes. I like the story. I think the story is very interesting and good, but it's got some holes. I feel like things just got missed and just don't make sense along the way through this movie as well. And a lot of it is the character interaction for me. Um, Cinematography looks great. I love the special effects of this movie. I mean, yeah, they're dated. Obviously, the movie came out in 1980, but I still think it looks really good. I love the shots we get of the fog rolling in. Although sometimes I feel like we use the same shot multiple times. There's still some really cool shots with the fog rolling in and just some of the viewpoints, the way this little town looks. Um, some of the beach views and ocean views and things like that that we get, I think are really good. So I like the way the film was shot. I like the special effects. The ghosts look good in this movie. I think we get some, nothing mind blowing, but some decent kills. Um, yeah, I was trying to think. I feel like the score, even the score at times in this movie, I thought was really good. Of course, it's John Carpenter, and we all know how talented he is when it comes to this kind of thing. But there's times where I think the score does a tremendous job of adding to the situations that are going on, and then there's other times where it's not as noticeable. But yeah, as far as cast, cinematography, score, um, very, very good. As far as story, good, but some holes. And as far as characters, I don't dislike anybody in the film. I just don't understand a lot of the interaction in the film. And like I said, we'll get into that as we begin to walk through the plot. A few production notes for this one, just a couple of things I wanted to mention. John Carpenter initially drew inspiration for this film when he and Deborah Hill were visiting Stonehenge, and they saw an eerie fog rolling in from a distance. And that's kind of what began to kick the story off in his mind and inspire him to do this. He also stated the story of the deliberate wreckage of the ship and then stealing from it was based on an actual event that occurred in the 19th century in California with a ship called the Frolic, I believe is how you pronounce that. Carpenter named characters in the film after people he had previously worked with. This was Adrienne Barbeau's first film. She was John Carpenter's wife at the time. Her first feature film. I think that is impressive because I think she's amazing in this movie. She seems like I didn't realize this was her first movie, but she just seems really solid. Like somebody had been doing this for quite some time. I'm a huge fan again of Adrienne Barbeau. So yeah, she's incredible in this movie, and that this is the fact this was her first film kind of surprises me a little bit. But yeah, that's really kind of all for the production notes, just where Carpenter's inspiration came somewhat and ideas came from. And yeah, we'll move on now and go ahead and get into the plot. Let me get a drink of my iced coffee real quick. See if my dog will settle down. Sounds like she may chime in this entire episode. So again, I apologize for that. Miss Bella, can you calm down, girl? Can you calm down? This dog. All right, let's get into this one and walk through the plot now a little bit. We start this movie off with the opening scene of an old man and some children. This old man, they're all sitting around a campfire out on a beach, and the old man is telling ghost stories to these kids, and he tells them the story of a ship that crashed nearby into the rocks, causing the entire crew to drown. There was a thick fog that the crew mistook for a campfire, or mistook for a lighthouse. It was a campfire, this light they saw with this fog in, and they couldn't see well, thought it was a lighthouse, ended up crashing. Fine opening. I mean, nothing really amazing here. It's okay. I think it's supposed to be eerie. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know. It's fine. Not a lot to say about the opening of this movie. We're just setting things up. We're setting up the story with the ship crash, and that kind of thing, and the people dying. But I mean, again, it is what it is. It's fine. But there we are introduced to the character of Father Malone, played by Hal Holbrook. He's there in his church, and some rocks fall, and he ends up finding his grandfather's diary, which will come into play later on. And this all begins happening. The old man in the beginning telling the ghost stories. This is right about midnight, and now as it is midnight here in this town, all of these strange things begin to happen. We are introduced. Well, we don't actually see Adrienne Barbeau yet, but we start hearing Stevie, the radio DJ, talking about the weather coming in. This movie, initially, I felt like maybe we were getting too much of this because there's another movie that I talked about recently that does something like this as well, and I can't remember what it was. I feel like it might have been something. Yeah, I don't want to say that because I might be completely wrong. I feel like we get a lot of a little bit of a scene, and then we hear Stevie, and then a little bit of a scene, and then we hear Stevie. Um, Before we are actually introduced to and meet her character, and it's a bit much. I feel like it's a little scattered, but it's okay. It's just a minor nitpick. Um, but yeah, she's talking about the weather, and for she's hearing there might be a storm coming, but she doesn't really see anything. Like I said, weird events begin to occur in the town. Phones start ringing all over the place. Electricity goes out at multiple places. We get this scene at a gas station where pump starts going, but this gas station's closed. But the nozzle falls off and the gas just starts pumping out. There's a car that's on a lift that starts going up by itself. Just a lot of weird events kind of begin going on around here. Almost looks like Maximum Overdrive or something. There's just some weird shit happening out there. But we then meet Nick, who's one of the residents of the town. He ends up picking up a hitchhiker, Elizabeth. Elizabeth played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Nick played by um, Tom Atkins. And as he picks her up and they begin going, just out of nowhere, all of the windows in his car breaks, which kind of scares them, freaks them out a little bit, but then they continue on. We get some shots of the fog starting to roll in. This fog seems to glow. It almost looks initially like, at times it looks like there's like headlights in the fog, and then other times it does appear to be glowing. But again, it looks fine. There's some scenes where I think this looks really, really good as far as this fog rolling in that we get throughout the movie. We see the fog begin to engulf this fishing boat that has three fishermen on it. They kind of see it coming in, and then they're in the middle of this fog. There is this much bigger boat, and we have some ghosts on this boat that end up killing these three fishermen. We get more again of Stevie talking, and then we discover that Nick and Elizabeth, shortly after him picking her up and the car windows breaking, they have now hooked up. They're there in bed together talking, and she's talking about where she plans on going from here. We see someone with a hook outside and someone knocking on their door. Nick goes to answer the door, but then the person is gone and a clock breaks. So with all of this happening, like I said, there's a lot going on here within this town. Let's kind of stop there for a minute. And yeah, at this point in the movie, again, because it had been so long since I saw it. So watching this now today, I was like, okay, I thought this movie was better than this, is what I was thinking right now as I'm watching it so far. Because again, we've a lot of chaos going on, which is fine with the things happening in the town. But just, we see something and then we hear Stevie, see something, hear Stevie. Like I was talking about, I didn't really like that, to be completely honest with you. I felt like it was happening too much, I guess maybe is what I should say. And then again, typical Tom Atkins character here. He picks up this hitchhiker. They have kind of a weird incident, and then immediately they go to bed together. And that's what Tom Atkins does. So, yeah, but the boat scene where the fog takes over, I do like this scene. I think this looks pretty creepy when the fog is rolling in and getting close, and then when this other big ship appears right there beside this little fisher boat. The ghosts look fine. The kills aren't bad here. They're kind of cool. So I enjoyed this scene that's going on here in this part of the movie. But there's just kind of a lot happening right here that's setting everything up. And watching it, I'm like, okay, this isn't bad. But I, for some reason, thought this was better than this, because I was just kind of very mid on this part of the film so far here. Because we're getting, by the time all this is going on, we're coming up on being about a third of the way through the movie, really, at this point. The next morning, Stevie's son Andy is out on the beach, and he ends up finding initially what looks like a piece of gold, and then turns out to be wood from like a broken boat with the word Dane inscribed on it. We then meet a couple of other characters, Kathy and Sandy, who are preparing the town for its 100-year celebration. We find out that Kathy's husband is missing right now, who turns out to have been one of the fishermen on the boat. So she's kind of wondering what's going on here. I don't know exactly what Nick does with these boats. We find out that Nick's job involves these boats, whether he's the one that rents them out or something. I'm not 100% sure. But he and Elizabeth find out about this fisher boat not coming back, and then they end up taking another boat out with someone else and find this boat. And again, we're just kind of cutting all over the place. We get more from Kathy and Sandy. They go to talk to Father Malone. Nick and Elizabeth discover a lot of damages on the boat where the boat looks like it's been sunk and been, there's a lot of water damage, yet it doesn't appear to have ever gone actually under the water. Cut back to Father Malone talking about his grandfather's diary that he found and reading some things from the diary to Kathy and Sandy about this ship called the Elizabeth Dane and the owner Blake, who had leprosy and was planning on getting some other people that had leprosy and kind of bringing them all together. And the 6 founders of this town of Antonio Bay, including Father Malone's grandfather, didn't want this leper colony nearby, and so they came up with a plan to kill Blake and his crew to avoid this leper colony being nearby, and then also to take all of the gold and money that Blake had on this boat to use to establish their town. Back on the fisherman boat where Nick and Elizabeth are, they continue to find, these damage and things, and then come across a body. There's kind of a jump scare scene where this body falls out on Elizabeth. And then again, one more time, we cut back to Father Malone, where he's talking about Blake's ship, that the founders caused this ship to crash. The fog had helped a lot as well, but they caused this ship to crash and ended up killing Blake and all of his men. Again, here the score is not bad at times. Here's where some of the score is pretty good, I feel like. Still a lot of back and forth. I feel like there's a lot of jumping around, and I don't know that the editing is that good. But again, we're getting story. We're getting the setup of the story of Blake and the Elizabeth Dane ship, and we're seeing what just drew a blank on names. Nick and Elizabeth are encountering and dealing with. Again, it's fine, but just nothing extraordinary. And so about halfway through this movie, my thoughts on it, and this is why I made the statement that I made at the beginning, because about halfway through this movie, what I'm thinking is I'm enjoying this a little bit, but I think I'm enjoying it because I love these actors. I love seeing Jamie Lee Curtis on the screen. Tom Atkins is great. Seeing Janet Leigh, who plays the character of Kathy, Nancy Loomis, who plays Sandy. We're getting to see Stevie now some instead of just hearing her voice on the radio, and Adrienne Barbeau, who plays Stevie. And this is kind of where I had the thought that had this have been a bunch of unknown actors, a bunch of people we didn't know, I would have been bored with this movie and turned it off. But because this is such a great cast, you just keep watching them perform, and they're all doing a great job. So even though, again, things are kind of all over the place, and there's nothing extraordinary happening, the cast is so good, the performances are so solid that you just keep watching. And it makes me wonder, like I said a couple of times now, had we got a different cast of a bunch of unknown actors, how would this be? But yeah, that's kind of where I was at about the halfway part of this film. Stevie takes this wood that her son found back to the lighthouse with her to look over it a little bit. And then we see there, because the lighthouse is where her DJ setup is, as she's back there at this lighthouse, this wood begins to just like suddenly start oozing water. It then busts into flames, and she hears a weird voice. But once she gets an extinguisher and puts out the fire, then the wood goes back to looking perfectly fine. And I believe we get some kind of a glimpse there again, because the wood has the word Dane written into it. It seems like that goes away for a minute, and we see something else about 6, which will come back into play later on. 6 must die or something like that, but then it turns right back to saying Dane again. But this has got her all freaked out now. We also find out that Nick and Elizabeth are talking about how this fisherman died, that it appears that he drowned, but he was never underwater. They end up taking him, getting the body in. A coroner investigates. The coroner is also very confused because it looks like this body has been, from the appearance of the body and the water in the lungs and that kind of thing, it would appear that the body had been found underwater after being there for weeks. Yet the coroner just talked to this gentleman a couple of days ago, and the body was not found underwater. So they're very confused exactly as to what is going on here. And while the coroner and Nick are talking, the corpse seems to briefly come back to life. It looks like it's going to attack Elizabeth, but then it collapses onto the floor, and it carves a 3 into the floor, as then we cut and get other shots rolling in again. Initially, this 3 kind of confused me a little bit. I didn't know exactly what it meant. I think now knowing what it means, because the theory comes up in this film that between Blake and his crew dying, that there were 6 founders, as we talked about earlier from the diary, the 6 founders of Antonio Bay that caused all of this to happen, that these ghosts now want to claim 6 victims to make up for those 6 people being, to make up for those 6 founders causing this to all happening. And at this point, we know the 3 fishermen had died. So I'm believing that's what the 3 carved into the floor is that so far 3 have died, but still 3 to go. Again, fine. The movie's starting to get a little better here. Honestly, I feel like, again, I'm enjoying the performances for the most part and the actors, but this scene where, you get a little bit of tension, I guess, where the body is coming back to life and we think it's going to attack Elizabeth. Starting to get very curious as to what is going on. Like, it's a good mystery and a good story of, again, it appears that this, fisherman had drowned and been found in the water after weeks, but that's not what happened. So the story is starting to get a little bit more interesting and pull you in a little bit more. Again, it's primarily the cast and the performances that are carrying this, but the story is getting a little better here at this point. The town then begins its celebration, and here's where I really feel like the movie picks up. And not only now do you have the great cast and the great performances, but the story gets really good, and we start to get some tension. There's a lot of good shots coming up here as well, but the creepiness of the movie, that kind of thing, begin to come in. And I don't know what exactly he did, but I believe I read somewhere that Carpenter, once they initially finished the film, didn't feel like the movie was scary enough, didn't feel like it had a horror vibe to it enough. And so they went back and did a lot of reshots to bring in more of the horror elements and some of the kills and that kind of thing to make it more of a horror movie. Curious of what he had put together without some of that. I guess just a lot of storytelling. But I feel like the storytelling in this is pretty good. The more we get into it, the better it gets. And I like storytelling. I've said multiple times, I feel like that's something that we don't get done very well a lot nowadays. So to get some good storytelling here, I feel like is good. And I feel like it gets better as the movie goes on, like I said. So I enjoy that as well. As this celebration begins, we see Kathy talking to a sheriff a little bit. We know that they're continuing to search for her husband. Nick and Stevie end up on the phone, and I don't remember exactly who calls who. I think Nick hears Stevie on the radio talking about this glowing fog, and he ends up calling her station and talking with her, and they start to discuss the fog. And here again is another thing where I'm like, okay, so Stevie apparently doesn't talk to a lot of people. There's one weatherman, Dan, that kind of calls and hits on her from time to time. And he even makes a comment at one point where she says something to him about she doesn't like being on the phone a lot. But yet this is the first time Nick and Stevie have ever spoken. They don't know each other, and they very quickly are just willing to tell each other everything that's happening. And yeah, I get it. There's a mystery happening and a lot of strange stuff, but I just felt like it was just like Nick and Elizabeth went from barely meeting and he picks up a hitchhiker to now suddenly they're in this relationship. Not only do they hook up the same night, which, okay, that happens, but now she doesn't want to be away from him, and they're just like immediately thrown into this relationship very, very quickly. And then now we have Stevie, who doesn't typically talk on the phone that much, just willing to tell Nick everything on the phone. I guess it's just that Tom Atkins effect or something here, but yeah, so they're talking on the phone a little bit. Stevie ends up back on the phone then later with this weatherman. I believe his name is Dan, as the fog continues to roll in. And then we see Ghost attack and kill Dan there at the weather station while Stevie's on the phone. And of course, she's freaking out. She tries to call or get in touch with the sheriff. But once she finally gets on the phone with him, phone lines and power lines go down. The fog continues to roll in, getting much thicker into this town. Stevie's able to use a generator to get power back up there at the lighthouse. Nick and Elizabeth go to the weather station but can't find anyone. We're where Dan's been attacked. Um, we get some pretty good shots here of the fog rolling in and just the different circumstances that people are in. And I do think that we get a lot of some creepy moments here and some good tension here as the fog begins to envelop the lighthouse where Stevie's at. We see Ghost trying to get in and attack her. She has managed to reach out and beg for people to go, check on her son for her because she can't get there. And we see the fog start to envelop her house as well. We see Ghost get in and kill her son's babysitter and almost get him before Nick and Elizabeth are able to arrive and save him. And so now we are at the point where we have 5 people killed. We have the 3 fishermen at the beginning, or somewhat of the beginning. We have the babysitter killed. We have the weatherman killed. So 5 people have been killed in this movie. Stevie is still inside the lighthouse and trying to survive herself, advises everyone, through her radio, through her broadcast, to get inside as the fog continues to roll in and get thicker, to avoid the fog, to hide. We kind of get the group coming together here of the people that we've become familiar with in the film of, Nick and Elizabeth, Kathy and Sandy, Father Malone, all getting together and hiding there inside the church as the fog rolls in, and so we get some cool shots here. We're still kind of going back and forth, but we see the ghosts attacking the lighthouse and trying to get to Stevie. We see these ghosts attacking the church and trying to get in and get to different ones of them. We see the group interacting and talking about the diary and talking about how 6 people must die. We also find out that that there is a cross there that's hidden in the walls of the church that was made out of the remaining gold that had been taken from Blake's boat after he and his crew were killed. And we get some of these attacks. We're cutting around. I feel like, again, here, there's still a lot happening, but we are getting good tension. We're getting solid performances. The score is good. I was really enjoying this part of the film with one exception, and I'm going to get back to that here in just a second, because as they start talking about how this 6 must die, Father Malone decides that, these ghosts, that Blake and his ghosts are there because they want the rest of the gold. And so they get the cross out of the wall. He offers the cross back to these ghosts and even offers to sacrifice himself to be the 6th person so that the ghosts would leave everyone else alone, go away. And it seems to work because once the ghosts get the gold, they start to disappear and vanish. The fog begins to go, roll back out and disappear. Stevie gets back on and begins to talk about the fog is going away, but that it could come back, and kind of warning everybody to be careful. And then we see Father Malone kind of talking and wondering why they didn't kill him. He's kind of surprised. But then we see, again, fog start to very quickly, like out of nowhere, come back into the church. And then we get a quick shot of Blake beheading Father Malone before the movie ends. And that wraps up the fog. Now, as I said, I feel like the second half of this movie is much better than the first as far as things happening and the tension and the creepy atmosphere. I, again, love the cinematography. I love some of the shots that we get. Score is good. Performances are very solid. Here's what I don't understand about this movie. One thing, again, how quickly these characters bond and begin to interact and just become close after not hardly knowing each other at all in multiple situations. Again, I guess it's just Tom Atkins, the quick bond and relationship between he and Elizabeth, but then Stevie and Tom Atkins just start telling each other all kinds of things. Andy, who does not know Nick or Elizabeth, and I realize he was under attack and they saved his life, but Stevie's begging for someone to go save her son, and then she just kind of stops talking about that and starts talking about the fog and other things going on. She doesn't know if anyone saved her son or not. They did, which is good, but she doesn't know that and just kind of seems to then forget that part for a little bit. I don't know. I love the cast, and I think all their performances are solid. There's just certain things that don't make sense to me. And then the biggest thing that I wonder about in this film, the movie's only 90 minutes, which is fine. The runtime is good. The pacing is pretty good. I could see, I guess, maybe how some people might find the beginning of the movie slow, because I did say I don't feel like there's a lot happening. But at the same time, I don't feel like it's slow either. I think it's paced well, and I think the cast just does such a great job that you don't feel bored, even though not a lot happens at times. Um, but yeah, my biggest problem with this movie is this. So if six members, six, Blake and his crew, there were six of them, and they're the ones that died on this shipwreck, and so now they want to take six lives to make up for that. I, I know it's 100 years later. One, what took so long? Why did they wait 100 years before they decided to come back and attack? And two, why chose the six that they chose? Because it just doesn't make any sense to me. The people that died, Father Malone makes sense if his grandfather had something to do with this. Um, but wouldn't they be after people who were at least relatives of the the founders of Antonio Bay that caused this to happen? These three fishermen that die first, we don't really know anything about them other than one of them being the husband of Kathy, and maybe because they're older, maybe one of them had something to do with this. But the other two, we have no idea anything about them to know if they had, and they're younger, so they, chances are they didn't have. Do they have family that had something to do with this? That's never explained to us, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The weatherman that gets killed, it's never mentioned that he had anything to do with any of this. The babysitter that gets killed, it's never mentioned that she has anything to do with any of this. Um, so five of the six people that die, Father Malone is the only one that really makes sense. Why the other five people? There's nothing to this story that explains why the people were killed that were killed. And if the ghost waited 100 years for Anchor Bay to, if the reason for the waiting 100 years is because of this celebration, this centenary celebration, then okay. But I still think it would make more sense if they came after family members of those six founders rather than just five random people, because that's what it seems like what happens. And it doesn't, it's five random people. And with the exception of Dan the weatherman, who we get a little bit of dealings with when he's on the phone a couple of times throughout the film talking to Stevie, and then the babysitter who we just see with Andy a couple of times, we're not invested in any of the people that do get killed. So that's kind of my issue. The victims, the six people that die, five of them, why? And you don't feel any of the losses in this movie, I guess is what I should say. None of the deaths bother you really, because who are these people? So that's kind of the issue I have with the film. I'm hoping I explain that a way that it makes sense. So again, I've got some knocks on this movie. I feel like there's some plot holes. I feel like there's some things that don't make sense. But again, there's things I really like. I think the second half is good. It's eerie. There's some tension here and there. The performances are great. The cinematography is great. The cast is great. I mean, score is good. There's a lot of things to like about this movie as well. So trying to rank it and give it a score, I just find myself wondering, the things that bother me, the plot holes that are there, how much do they bother me? How much do they take away from my enjoyment of this film? I'm probably going to go back and rewatch this again fairly soon, because again, it had been so long since I had seen it that I have forgotten most of this movie. And so watching it today was almost like a first time watch again. Now that I know what to expect again, now that it's fresh in my memory, I kind of want to see it again to see if these things bother me even more or if they bother me less. So yeah, I'll probably rewatch this again fairly soon. But for now, on my scale of 1 to 10 for The Fog from 1980, I still think this is a classic. Cinematography, again, I'm going to repeat myself for a minute, but the cinematography is really good. Second half of the movie does a good job of bringing in some eeriness and some tension. Score is good. Performances and cast are incredible. I'm still going to rank this movie, I feel like, really high. So for me, even with the plot holes, for me, The Fog from 1980, I'm going to say 7.5 out of 10. I still think this is a really good movie. Potential for that score to rise or drop in the future. But for now, 7.5 out of 10 for me on The Fog. So now I want to know what you think. Leave me some comments. If you've seen this movie, let me know what you think about it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Any insight on why the people died that were chosen to die? Yeah, just share with me your thoughts on this movie. I am very curious. I always like to get the interaction and to see what other people think about these movies that I talk about. So leave me some interaction with your thoughts on The Fog or on the channel in general. Again, subscribe if you haven't. I've got some more fun stuff coming up in just a couple of days. Isaiah from The Bitter Wolf is going to be on. We're going through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and Isaiah and I will be talking about Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. That's coming in just a couple of days. Some fun episodes next week. I believe tonight, actually, I will be live on A&B Horror Movies channel with some of my friends there discussing some different things. So that'll be tonight. Next week, I don't know. I did start to say, I don't know if I even brought my calendar in here, but I did. Let me look. Next week, I've got episodes coming on Child's Play 2 with Ken and Ashley from Sledgehammer Horror. That's coming up next week. Also going to step away and talk about a non-horror movie next week. Brendan from Our Life in Horror and Bo from Critic After Dark are going to come on. We all have a soft place, I guess, for DC superheroes. So we're going to actually talk about Man of Steel next week, a little break from horror to talk about a superhero movie. And then, I also have future episodes coming up on the Town That Dreaded Sundown remake with Rob from Slasher Radio. That horror couple is going to be back. We're going to be talking about Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. The Final Girls will be back, and we'll be talking about Jeepers Creepers Reborn. So, a lot of fun episodes still to come. Return of the Living Dead somewhere down the line. Possibly Psycho Killer, the new movie that just came out in theaters. Scream 7, I'll have an episode coming out on that. So a lot of fun stuff coming. Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Follow me on social media, pretty much on everything out there. Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, X. Yeah, I want all of it. Just search Sean's Horror Corner and you can find it. Again, subscribe, like, comment, hype, share. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you soon.